Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this week we're going to take a look at yet another module inside of iZotope's Ozone 9. This is the advanced version. There are three different versions of this mastering suite available: advanced, standard, and elements. The difference is really between the advanced and the standard is a couple. One, you have a few different modules in this advanced version that you don't have in the standard modules or in the standard version. And you can also use this each one of these modules as separate plugins inside of your DAW, where you cannot do that on the standard version, although today we're looking at it as a standalone piece of software. So before we take a look at another module, and this week we're going to take a look at the Imager to give us a little bit of stereo width to our mix. Before we get to that, if this is your first time here, welcome to the HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com family. I want to give you a free gift. Head on out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. I want to give you a free mixing course. Right on the homepage, big orange button, you can't miss it. Go there today, get your free mixing course. And while you're there, if you want to pick up any other training, I want to give you a special 25% discount coupon code. The coupon code is YouTube25. Put that in at checkout. You could take 25% off any one of the courses on my website. All the links will be in the description box below. So let's head on in here into Ozone 9. So if you want to see the other reviews that I've done on the other different modules inside of Ozone 9, check the playlist. There's a specific playlist just for Ozone 9, so you could check that out as well. But we're going to take a look at the Imager today. So we're going to come over here to the plus button. We're going to add our Imager, and we're going to put it before our maximizer. We're going to drag it over to the left, and here is the Imager. So we're going to walk through this. So there's a few different ways, a few different tools here. But again, what I love about Ozone in general is everything's laid out very easily to see. There's not a lot of bunch of junk on the screen that you don't need. It's a pretty simple interface and pretty simple controls and gets wonderful results. So if we start here at the top left, we have three different views here. Here is, if I just play back a little bit of audio here.
Reasons for change, it's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged.
Our standard graphic display. If we come over here to this view, this is the trace view. This is going to help us determine when we play back audio, which I'll demonstrate in a few seconds here, if we have any phasing issues. And then this is a left-right. So you can see the frequency spectrum for the left and the right channels, okay? So we're going to go back here to the standard view here. And what we're going to do is you can put up to 4 bands here, and you can just come up here and left click, drag this around 4 bands, and you can take these and you can adjust the crossover points to whatever you feel you want to do. Or if you're not sure where you should set them for a particular for a particular track, you can use the learn button. So you just go ahead and randomly kind of put these in here. And then what you can do is, this is 3, you have all 4 bands here, 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants here. And you come up over here to this, you play back your audio, come over here to the learn button, and it will automatically shift based on the program material where they feel the crossover points ought to be. So let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to play back the audio.
Reasons for change, it's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged, they're tearing me down.
Okay, so I clicked the learn button, and based on that, they went ahead and they adjusted this. Now you can always take this and drag it back, and you could change the crossover points yourself. And that's just in one section of the song. If you want to come over to maybe the last chorus of the song and try that again.
Get away from you, and I'll be fine. Cleaning out the corn, put it back in order.
Okay, a little different there, okay? And again, you can adjust those to your heart's content, but that gives you a good starting point if you're someone that's new. And then what you can do in each one of these little bands or quadrants, you can click the solo button, and you can just hear those specific frequencies. Pretty handy, right?
Cleaning out the corn, put it back in order. No.
Okay, and if you solo up one of these banded areas here, with this is at 100 and what? This crossover point's at 193 and below. Now we're just seeing the band that we soloed here in the trace view. And what this top line represents is whether or not we have any phase cancellation or not. And I'm going to demonstrate some of this in a second for you. So let's move on to the bottom here. I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this. So along the bottom, now that we have our 4 quadrants in here, or our 4 sections, we got 4 bands right here. along the bottom. Here's the low frequency one here. If we take this, we can drag this, and you can see as I click on it, it highlights the quadrant that we're in. So we can make this more width or less width, more mono sounding. Band 2, you can do the same thing. 3, okay, and 4. And we'll do all this in a second here. We'll talk about Stereolize in a minute. For now, don't worry about that. Over to the right, we have our scopes. When we play back our audio, and if everything is set in the middle here, or at its default, okay, and we play back our audio, you're going to see in the scope here, this is our polar sample scope here. This is really great to see if you have any phasing issues inside of your mix, which a lot of people don't think to do that. The one thing about stereo widening, if you add too much stereo width, things could sound really kind of phasey. You'll have phase cancellation, and it won't sound as good on a mono source. Okay, so we're trying to strike a balance between stereo and mono. So in this scope here, anything here in the V area here is where you want the majority of your audio to be. That means it's going to sound, you're going to hear those things in a mono source, mono stereo playback. Anything on the left and right is where you're not really going to hear that. You're going to kind of lose that when you fold things into mono. It may sound nice and wide in your control room, but if you're listening on something a little bit more mono, you might lose some of that information. So it's a good visual indicator. On the right here, we have this little meter here from +1 down to -1. When we play back the audio, you're going to see this little blue dot move. You want to be somewhere up towards the +1. Towards the +1, the more towards +1 that you are throughout your track means you have no phase cancellation, that things are phase aligned the way they're supposed to be. And if you take any of my mixing courses, we talk about using things like Auto Align by Sound Radix and other phase correction tools to make sure we don't have any phase issues and or frequency cancellations, okay? So that's good. Anything below 0, more towards the 1, means you're going to have a lot of phase cancellation. So let's just play this back and see what we see here on the meter. Let me unsolo our low frequencies.
I know the seasons right to change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you arrange.
So as you can see, we have everything really up here towards +1 because I mix this track myself and I check for phase. So I know that it's going to sound, it's going to be right because I mix that way, and I teach that in my mixing courses. And you can see 99% of the information is in this V, in this center triangle here.
I know the seasons right to change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. You're tearing me down.
Okay, so now watch what happens when we start to boost up some of these things and make things a little bit wider. You'll see what happens here to this. You'll see that when we go from +1, you'll see we'll start drifting a little bit more down towards 0.
I know the seasons right to change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. You're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life?
Okay, now I've exaggerated. You could see now all the frequencies are falling outside this center V here, where it's getting more towards the left and the right. And you can see that we're bouncing a lot more closer to 0 throughout that track because I've over-exaggerated it. Okay, so even though you may think it sounds better, because if I take this away and just solo this, watch what happens.
I know the seasons right to change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. You're tearing me down.
Now you may think, especially if you're wearing headphones while you're listening to this, that sounds so much better. It's so much wider, there's so much more separation. But you got to be careful. You got to be careful. And this is why Ozone 9 is great and these tools are great. Because yes, we need to use our ears, but in this case, we also need to use our eyes. Typically, when we talk about EQ and compression and all those things, we say, don't look at the meter, use your ears, forget what's on the screen, right? This is the exact opposite of that, where you got to you have to listen, yes, but you also want to use these tools to help. Because again, what sounds good on your headphones or in your studio, if you over widen things, you go play this on a mono source, you're going to lose a lot of the information and the mix is not going to sound right. So let me show you what happens when we come over here to Trace View with all this boosting.
I know the seasons right to change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. You're tearing me down. Where is the peaceful?
See how we have lots of parts of the audio that are getting towards the center, towards phase cancellation? Even though I've exaggerated this, it's not quite there.
I know the seasons right to change. Pieces that I'll never need. I'm alright. From you, and I'll be fine. In the night, the corn, put it back in order.
because this mix is pretty good and there was no phase cancellation, but we're getting closer and closer to where we're going to have some issues, even though I exaggerated it. So if I bring this all the way back here, and if I just take one of these bands, let me see if I can show you what happens if I just take one quadrant here. Let's say the one in the middle here. We'll solo this up. Piece of you. Okay, see right here where it marks it in red, that's where we had some phase cancellation. Not many, just a little. For a split second, we had a little bit of phase cancellation here. But depending on the mix that you have with the audio file that you're using, you can boost these up just a tiny bit. Come over to this trace view and you may see a ton of red. And that's an indicator that, wow, you got some phasing problems. You got to be very careful with the stereo widening. Okay, so this is why trace view is really, really good, because it gives you a visual indicator when phase cancellation or frequency cancellation, things are canceling out, that you can see it, even though you can't hear it. You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you. See, now that I turn that down, it's all way above here. It's nowhere near any kind of problems. Okay, let's check one of the other ones here. Let's check up in here maybe. Always have this too. Exaggerate that. Let's see. Okay, again, once again, you can see we're getting a bunch of some phase cancellation here. And you can see it down here on the scope. Look right down here. This would be no good. You don't want this. Okay, so I'm exaggerating it to show you what to look for. You want to be subtle with this kind of stuff. Okay, you want to be very subtle. So if I come back here, and I go ahead and I just unmute everything. Let's check our low end too. That's another one. So right now you can see we're pretty good from a mono. Low end kick drum bass. You want that right up the middle as much as possible for a mono source. We're not using stereo widening on our low ends. And even though this looks pretty good, we still have some stuff that's creeping out a little to the left and right. Watch what happens. If I boost it, you get some energy moving. That would be no good. But if I turn it all the way down, now it's right up the middle, right? So not only can you boost it, but you can also turn it down, lower it. Keep this right up the middle with the low ends. Where is my shelter in the rain? Well, I'm all right. Yeah, we could probably spread this out a little bit more. Not too much, right? The high end. Okay, look at this. Gotta be careful now. Okay.
Help me dry all my tears and help me lay on my fears and help me, I think I am falling. Does anybody hear me calling? Help me dry all my tears and help me lay on my fears and help me, I think I am falling.
So when done in a very subtle way, and you're sensitive to the phase cancellation or some of the phasing issues or frequency cancellations that you're having, you're going to find you're going to do this in a pretty subtle way. And when you turn it on and off, it's just going to get a little wider. Okay, stereo imaging and stereo widening is something you have to be careful of, okay? You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you. Okay, so if you find that you have a track where when you come over to trace mode, you do have a ton of phase issues here. This track doesn't. You can incorporate this thing called the stereolyzer, and what this does is it reduces the range between phase and the phase cancellation, and you can play around with this along with the two different modes, the way it reacts a little differently, and that could help you be able to give yourself a little bit more width on some of your bands here and have less frequency cancellation or less phasing issues. I don't necessarily think that it means that you have to be completely out of the red. You can't have one red mark anywhere, anytime, but you want to be very, very careful. If you have one little point here and one little point there, it may not make much of a difference, but you want to use all of these things in conjunction with each other to help strike a balance, right? A happy medium, if you will.
You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you. How can we let this slip away, slipping through my hands? How can the darkness blind the day, bring back the light? Where is the pleasure in the pain?
Okay, so you can hear the difference as I swing this from 0 to 20 milliseconds, how things start to change. Again, typically I don't use this very much because usually, again, when I'm doing mastering, if I've mixed the project, things are in phase because I take care of that at the mixing stage, right? So I'm just doing a little light width here.
You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
So once I get to the end here and I notice that, okay, I'm towards the +1 most of the time. I don't have anything really falling too far outside of this little V triangle here in the center of our graph. I've checked my tracing. I'm not finding any red points at all. I'm in pretty good shape. At that point, I'm using my ears and then deciding, is this going to be a little bit too much or not? And again, I want to do things very subtly. And then what I find is I push it as much as I can before I have really any phase or frequency cancellations here in the trace view. And then what I find is I end up dialing everything back about 10 or 15%. I go a little too far, push it as far as I can, then pull it back a little bit, and then turn it on and off here and just listen.
You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
Okay, so that's how you use the imager here in Ozone 9. Again, this is wonderful. Again, it's simple. It's easy to use. There's not a lot of controls on the screen to overwhelm you. If you're not really sure about some of the controls that I explained about here, you could go out to their website and read their manual by clicking the little question mark up here in the top right-hand corner. The manual for this particular plugin is written very, very well. It's rather large, but each one, it's broken down by module, and it really is written in a very layman's terms kind of way. So you don't have to be an engineer or know a lot of technical jargon. It kind of lays things out in a really easy way to understand. So I do recommend that on this particular plugin with all the modules, even if you think you really understand it, go read the manual because you'll learn all the little details that you may miss just playing around with it by yourself. So it is a really well written manual. So that's how you use the imager here in Ozone 9. Again, if you want to check out Ozone 9, you can purchase it at sweetwater.com for the same price that you can purchase it on the iZotope website. Links will be in the description box below, and that's an affiliate link. So if you do purchase that at Sweetwater or anything else at Sweetwater, it does give me a small commission and allows me to do all these YouTube videos for you guys at no charge, but you don't pay any extra money. So I just want to be upfront in full disclosure. It helps Uncle Dave out, and I appreciate if you use the links in the description box below. So next week we'll take a look at another module. Let me know what you use for mastering. Do you use Ozone 9? Do you use some other sort of mastering software? If not, why not? How do you master your own music? I'd be curious to know. Leave comments in the description box below. And until next week, I've been Dave with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, along with MixingMadeEasy.net. Make sure you get your free mixing course at HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.